What's going on, everybody? Ryan the Mighty Quinn here on the Cornerman _MMA. UFC Vegas 64 in the books. A lot to break down, but we're going to mainly focus on the main event. Before I forget, as always, please like, subscribe, and share. Comments are greatly appreciated. I love connecting with you guys for the good, bad, or indifferent. It's all gravy. That's what this is all about, right? So, we'll take it from the top. We're going to mainly focus on Amanda Lemos' performance, but there was some other stuff to make mention of that happened at UFC Vegas 64. Mainly, Neil Magny. So happy for that dude. Like I said, for this fight against D-Rod. I don't know how much Neil Magny has left, but I know he has Saturday night. I said this earlier on a podcast with Betting Bananas. I knew that he was just a bad matchup for D-Rod with his length and the way D-Rod comes forward. He's not very slick, so to speak. Actually, the way D-Rod fights, he should fight a lot more like Amanda Lemos fought, and I'm going to break down with the boxing later on. Now, Poliana Viana, too. I knew that was a great matchup for her. She just, the size, she was able to just use her size to get in and just create havoc. That's exactly what happened. Love that fight. And let's focus on Grant Dawson. I think that was he was the main prospect to look to go forward last night. He's the next, but him and Amanda Lemos, what to look for next. Grant Dawson is, he had that great win over Mark Madsen. First, I think that was a clean cut example as MMA wrestling versus straight wrestling. Mark Madsen, silver medalist, Greco-Roman wrestling. Grant Dawson has decent wrestling, very straight wrestling. But when it comes to MMA, he mixes it in. He's had great training his whole MMA career from over at Glory, and now he's at American Top Team. You saw Steve Mako in his corner. He's one of the best wrestling coaches in mixed martial arts. And just the way he mixes it up, the way he was able to extend to get up to those single legs, those crackdowns. And that's the other thing. For those of you who don't realize, with Greco-Roman wrestling, it's all upper body. So maybe Mark was a little bit at a disadvantage, but he's still a world-class wrestler regardless. So I'm not really pinning that down. I just think it was MMA wrestling that Grant is better at. Also, I felt that the matchup for Grant favored him so heavily because, and I don't usually fault fighters on their age, but Mark being 38, he got into MMA a little bit later. So that forced him to be a specialty fighter through his career, where Grant could be well-rounded everywhere else. And then, Grant called out Tony Ferguson. I think that's a great fight. I would love to see that. Honestly, I don't think that Tony's going to do it. And Grant was very clear that if this fight doesn't happen, it's because Tony said no. I just don't think that Tony does that fight. That's me personally. I would love to speak with Grant on what other options he has. Hopefully I can get him on here later this week, couple weeks. But anyway, let's get into the main event. Amanda Lemos versus Marina Rodriguez. Wow, I could not have been more wrong about the way that fight was going, and I loved why I was wrong. I felt that Amanda's aggressiveness was going to have her run into 1-2 leg kicks, 2-3 leg kicks all night. And I thought that eventually she would even be forced to not even get up off the stool. Similar to how Grant was using those calf kicks against Mark Madsen, he got chopped down. I thought that she would eventually get chopped down. Now, we'll get into why she won in a minute. So the first round, I felt she lost on dominance in the striking realm. As far as scoring goes, we covered a lot on this show with John McCarthy, Mike Mazzulli, Andy Foster. I felt she lost that round simply because it was a striking round. We were scoring the striking, and she just didn't connect as much. So there wasn't any damage there, but there was dominance because of the connection. Screw the significant strikes landed. You all know how I feel about that. Now, second round, she had a great trip, showed back control. Now, I love that happened. That gives me ammunition for the fight that I have for mixed martial arts scoring. For those of you watching last night, because it was a punch in the mouth with what I'm trying to explain here. A lot of times submissions don't get scored as damage. And in that round, she had a tight rear naked choking that she did not finish. And it affected Marina Rodriguez the rest of the round. She was fatigued, and it led to more scoring and higher position duration for Amanda. So that submission attempt affected the round the same way a knockdown would, okay, or the same way a significant strike landed where you rattle an opponent would. I know that was scored. I just wish that more things like arm bars, leg locks, and stuff. Leg locks too, if they break something, but that is where grappling damages. Okay, and I'm so happy that happened. Third round, which is the meat and potatoes of this video. Actually, we got to circle back to the first round real quick. The reason why the first round was so close and things didn't go the way I thought they'd go with Marina's leg kicks, and then this led into the third round, is because Amanda was able to slow things down with her feints. Okay, usually a more aggressive fighter, she slowed things down with her feint. It gave Marina things to think about. Leading into the third round, now you got a little bit of a fatigued Marina. She had Amanda was working her feints first. I thought Amanda was a southpaw. I saw her mixing up a little bit last night, but Amanda was working her feints. Now you're keeping Marina on her heels with that feint. Okay, she can't come forward, or she can't really land those combinations I spoke on leading to the leg kicks. So she's leading those feints, and then as soon as Amanda saw the cover up by Marina, 2, 3, 2, body, whop, 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 finishing combination. It was devastating, and it was pretty. This is why feints are so important in mixed martial arts, boxing in general, and this feint led to the devastating finish. It's similar to like how an offensive lineman in football, how they don't get the credit they deserve for running back success on jetting up for 15 yards, creating that hole for the running back. That this feint created that hole, boom, 3, 2 for Amanda, and that's why feints are so important. The best feinter in the game right now is definitely Dustin Poirier. So you're going to be able to watch him next week, and you'll see what I'm talking about. He's definitely going to be hitting that against an explosive, aggressive Michael Chandler. Watch for Dustin's feints. So, the feints. Now, I think this also shows, and it's not what it was. Boxing has improved a lot more in mixed martial arts, but this was another slap in the face, similar to my round 2 analogy with how effective boxing is, and it's going to lead Amanda. I don't know if she gets a title shot next, because she had the loss before. There's a lot going on in that strawweight division, but maybe it was a pretty dominant performance against someone who probably would have gotten a title shot had she won last night in Marina Rodriguez. So we'll see what happens there. Now, this I love seeing this because it gets to talk about boxing and mixed martial arts. Now, it's not as bad as it used to be, but when I started, boxing was probably the most ignored style in mixed martial arts. Now, especially in the United States and Brazil, you're seeing a lot more boxing influence for these fighters. Still not in Asia, Russia. It's still a little more kickboxing and overall body striking influence. That's fine. That they're going to catch up to real soon. As you've seen, Russia catches up with everything. They're dominating everything. So really, what do they need to change right now, right? So I remember when I started, a lot of people started. I had the wrestling, but I really wanted to get down the jiu-jitsu, the grappling, and kickboxing. Honestly, just because kickboxing sounded a lot cooler than boxing. That's what I thought. And I think that a lot of people, because you see these kickboxing highlight knockouts, I think immediately they think, oh, I better learn kickboxing before I learn boxing, because that's what's being used at the UFC level. Not really. Boxing is what's used at the high level of the mixed martial arts, the UFC level, and then the kickboxing. And you can use boxing to keep people at bay, a hard kickboxing striker away, much like Amanda did last night. Now, so I think that you're going to see a lot more influence in boxing, a lot more of those feints. That's the tell. When a fighter is feinting, that's when you could tell that they're really working their boxing. There's kickboxing feints, but it's not really the same. As well as the footwork. Amanda's footwork was a little more boxing oriented. That's a whole nother story, but more or less people with boxing footwork are a little less flat-footed. We'll get into that some other time. But I just think that the boxing was key. Her boxing was won last night, and honestly, boxing wins overall. If you're going to take people at this high level, and you'll see it a lot next week too. Actually, I think that Israel Adesanya, he needs to rely more on boxing than kickboxing. Just take the weapons away from Alex Pereira. You're going to see that those people who have been working their boxing, that it kind of brings them up above the rest. I remember when I started training boxing, I had the great wrestling, the really good grappling, the somewhat decent kickboxing. Boxing was horrible. I used to box with Aaron Davis down in the Bronx, and he would beat the crap out of me. Remember one time we sparred? I was telling somebody about the story the other day. He hadn't thrown hands in 3 years, and all he did was feint, play jabs, counter right hands. Every one of those counter right hands was offensive. They didn't knock me out, but it stung. and all because he would work his feints and his jabs. Feints and jabs is like it. After that, I was like, I got to get a good jab now. I got to get a good jab. I never really had great boxing, but I had a really good jab when I was fighting. So I really love seeing that. The way when boxing gets magnified like that, when it gets exposed and exemplified at that manner, it's so pretty, especially in mixed martial arts. Love the feints. I'm going to go back and watch the fight later because I love what I saw. Anyway, that's what I got, guys. Let me know what you think. Please like, subscribe, and share. I said we got some cool stuff coming up this week. I got a debate with King Mo about something pretty sensitive to both of our hearts. And like I said, we got UFC 281 coming up in Madison Square Garden. Super, super excited about that. And that's it. Let me know, guys. Bye.